Make sure you're in speaker view. All right, welcome everybody. So tonight's class is dedicated to or on Virasana, Hero's Pose, right? So again, one of my favorite things is to take, or is becoming to take a position like Virasana that we very much take for granted, right? We use it as a resting posture, we use it as a beginning posture, we use it as just a sitting position, and actually look at it as a real experience is already in and of itself a practice, right? Is to take the things that you normally take for granted and look at them as a real experience, right? It's relevant. But Hero's Pose is actually a pretty challenging position, right? It's a lot of quad opening. It's a lot of pelvis, lower back expansion that needs to be there in order for it to be practiced, not just by itself without props, because ultimately that's what we're looking for if the joints will allow it, is to be able to do the position without props, but to also be able to do some of the variations that come into Virasana, right? So the name itself, the Hero's Pose, brings you this feeling of the attitude of the hero is not in what's done outside in the actions, but the attitude of the hero is what happens internally that is always present no matter what you're doing. So in that seated kind of place that Hero's Pose is, right, in the moments that you take for granted, is what's happening inwardly. The attitude that you have towards the actions that you're taking is what makes them heroic or not, right? Is what leads you to live a heroic life or not. Yeah. So the cultivation of this pose is being able to stay, again, big muscle poses, big stretching poses require us to have to stay very steady. And at the same time is to be connecting to the power that there is in you to take what seems like it is maybe very normal and mundane and boring in your life and treat it as a real experience, right? So that's the heroes. The hero exists in the heart, or it exists in the inner world, and that expands into, or it enlivens the actions that you take on the outside. So eyes closed if you're not there already. Really fun for those of you that are starting in Virasana, because that's your normal seat. So just be where you are, but let the eyes close for a moment. Just letting yourself go inward and wondering if that place inside is somewhere that feels like it is a strong place or it's a weak place. Right? Do you run inside to escape, or do you run inside to come back to yourself? And are you able to take just this moment of connecting with yourself and with your breath, treat it like it's an important, real experience? So that whatever is going on in your life, the things that you're going to reemerge back to when you're done with this class, is you go back to them with an attitude of treating them like they are a real experience. And one more very deep breath, filling the bowl of the pelvis, the bowl of your belly. And exhaling, feeling your sit bones get dropping and widening, getting heavy. Almost just that pulling on the lower spine. And then bring the hands together at the heart center at the same time that you continue to drop down through your sit bones, drop down through your tail, a little lift to your hip points, drop down into the heaviness of your sit bones, and then lift your sternum up into your hands. Good. So that lengthening of the spine, again, from the middle of your spine, is this is part of the Hero's Pose, is staying very upright, even though the pelvis is heavy, not sinking into it, but extending up from that seat. Good. So sternum up and pelvis drops. Nice. And we'll open with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. Let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. You can release your hands, please, and then move your self forward onto hands and knees. Actually, no, don't come onto hands and knees. I lied. I want you to come onto your back. Yep. Got ahead of myself. Onto your back, please. Good. Come all the way to lay down. Bend your knees. If you have a block with you, lift your seat, place the block underneath your sacrum. A supported bridge pose. Good. And then if you set yourself up, make sure that your feet are underneath your knees. Your knees are only as wide as your hips. So again, you're setting up this understanding of what it means to have your heels in line with your knees and your knees in line with your hips. So in Virasana, we're not going much wider than that. The knees have to stay in line with the hip points. Good. So here's where you start to feel that already. If your knees want to splay wide, then you're giving them a little bit of a squeeze in and noticing that that might begin to challenge the muscles on your outer thighs and hips. That's fine. Good. But Jen, do you have a block underneath your sacrum or you're just holding there? You have a block. Yeah.
My black errand person is about to come with it.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay. Nice. Good. It's good to have a block errand person. So once you found yourself settled with your legs in this neutral sort of position, feet facing straight ahead, is I want you to actually tilt your pelvis towards your heels. So you're actually arching the lower back a little bit, almost like you're trying to get your tailbone to fall off of the front edge of your block. Good. So you're pressing through the wideness of your sacrum, but you're tilting your pelvis slightly forward. So the groins are rolling down towards the floor. Good. Thigh creases are getting a little deeper. And then feel as though as you move into that lengthening of your lower back, you rotate the pelvis and then try and soften again through your back rib cage. Good. So you're exaggerating the arch of the lower spine, again, almost as though you're falling off of the block. Let those thigh bones really descend into the hip socket. Good. And then soften through your rib cage. Nice. And then draw the right knee in towards your chest. Try to keep the pelvis pretty much in this position, but draw the right knee in towards your chest. Watch that your left knee doesn't fly out to the side. Keep it in that neutral position. Good. You can use the hands at the front of the shin. Squeeze that right knee in towards your chest. Good. Keep trying to roll that left thigh or that left side of your sacrum forward towards the front of your block. Good. And then hold behind the right thigh, please. Extend your heel up towards the ceiling. So you're coming into the hamstring stretch, still trying to get your pelvis to fall off of that block. So you're still rotating the pelvis towards the top of your block or towards your heel. Good. Yep. So you're exaggerating that arch of the spine. Press your thigh into your hands. Good. And push straight up. Nice. Keep your left heel really flat, pelvis rolling forward. Good. One more breath. Press the hands into the thigh into the hands. Nice. And then release that. Place the right foot down to the floor. And again, reset it so that your knee is in line with your hip and your ankle is underneath your knee. Good. And then bring the left knee in towards your chest. Again, reset that rotation of the pelvis where you're falling off of the block. It's an overextended or over-exaggerated arch in your lower spine. Good. Hold behind the left thigh. Please watch that your right knee is not splaying wide. And then stretch that left heel up towards the ceiling. Good. Press the thigh into your hands. Again, you're rotating your pelvis forward. So you're really trying to keep that arch in your lower spine. So if your right butt cheek is clenching, right, the supporting leg is clenching and lifting up off of the block, do the reverse of that, right? Start to relax that glute and try and roll yourself off of that block towards the front edge. Good. Press your thigh into your hands. Press up through the heel. Good. Watch that the right knee is not splaying wide. There's a little hugging in. Nice. Good. Really press the thigh against your hands, you guys, and find the space between the top of that thigh and the front of your pelvis. That's the point, right? You push the thigh into your hands and rotate the pelvic bones. That's it. Nice, Kristen. Good. And then bend that knee back in towards your chest, please. Place the foot down to the floor. Good. Reset that rotation of your pelvis. So again, arching into the lower back just a little bit. Bring your arms into robot arms, fingers pointing up towards the ceiling, elbows close in towards your ribs. Press down through the upper arms, squeeze those muscles of the back, and then try and keep this angle on your pelvis. but lift your butt up off the block. So it's like you're coming into bridge, but I don't want you to tuck your tail under and get into that squeeze of your butt. I want you to really work the engagement of the glutes and lifting from your hamstrings. So pressing down into your heels. Good. And lift the butt up off of the block. Keep your knees in line with your hips. Nice. And then release your butt back down to the block. Again, reset that rotation. So find that arch in your lower spine. Good. Press down through the upper arms. Squeeze the muscles of the back. Lift your hips up again. Try and maintain that angle of your pelvis. Drag back on your heels. So again, you're focusing more on the big muscles of the legs instead of just squeezing into your butt and pushing your hips to the sky. Good. And then release the butt back down to the block, or the sacrum back down to the block. One more time like that. Reset the pelvis, rotating forward. And then press into the arms, press down and drag back on your heels. Lift the hips up off of the block. Again, it doesn't have to be high. Just the feeling of using the muscular energy of the legs to lift as you continue to rotate the pelvis, lengthening your spine. So pull your butt towards your heels. Good. Nice, you guys. And while you're up there, move the block out from underneath you. Good. Slowly let the hips find their way all the way back down to the floor. Beautiful. And then right knee comes in towards your chest. Good. Squeeze the thigh in or squeeze the knee in. Hold behind the thigh, extend your right heel back up towards the ceiling. Watch that you don't start wiggling that left leg around. Try and keep the knee in line with your hip and your heel in line with your left sit bone, your left butt cheek. Good. Press the thigh into your hand, please. Even here, try and find that sensation of rolling the pelvis slightly forward. Good. And then trying to relax through your middle ribs. Good. Nice, you guys. Press the thigh against the hands. Press up through the heel. Good. Thigh moves away from your low belly. Awesome. And then bend the knee back in towards your chest, please. Good. Place that right foot down to the floor in line with your right hip. Left knee comes in towards your chest. Good. Squeeze it in. So again, you're working this front of the thigh crease. We're working this sort of mobility of the leg in the hip socket. Hold behind the thigh, please. Extend your left heel up towards the ceiling. Hamstring stretch. Press the thigh back against your hands. Again, rotating the pelvis slightly forward towards your heel. Tailbone towards your heel. Good. And then as you tilt, again, that's going to create too much of an arch in your lower back. So start to soften your rib cage, middle rib cage down to the floor. Good. And as you pull that thigh away, push the thigh away from your belly, draw your hip points, the front of your pelvic bones up towards your lower ribs. Good. So there's a lot of sort of push and pull here that means that you have a neutrality to your pelvis, right? So that's what we're doing is we're trying to mess with these little micro movements to try and find a neutral place where the legs are acting in the pelvis and the pelvis is not restricting the ribs and the ribs are not restricting the pelvis. Good. Bend the knee again, or place that foot down to the floor. Good. Squeeze both knees in towards your chest. Circle the knees. So I usually say, yep, you could do it both knees together like a little massage, but then I want you to try it the other way where you move the knees in opposition to each other. So if the knees are straight in front of you, you're separating the knees and circling them away from each other. There you go. Good. And then try that going the other direction. So you're circling the knees now towards each other. Good. Nice job. And then bring the knees all the way in towards your chest, squeeze them in. Good. And then stretch the legs out in front of you. Flip over onto your belly. So if you want to flip around on your mat so that you're facing me, you're welcome to. But flip over onto your belly and grab a block and a blanket. Have them handy. Good. So I want you to have just the block first. Blanket can just hang out to the side. Just make sure that you can reach it. So I want you to place the block between your shins. Good. Can be either the narrow setting if you feel like that works for your hips or the middle setting. Don't go fully wide. That's going to be too wide for your hips. Good. Block between your shins and hug. Good. And then you can relax the torso to the floor, forehead to the floor, let your elbows go wide. You can make a pillow with your hands here, or you can keep the head slightly lifted if that feels better. Good. But you're relaxing the upper body. Hug the block with your shins. And then begin to lift the legs up into a half locust. So just the lower half of the body is lifting up. Good. So the inner thighs pull up towards the ceiling and you're lengthening. So feel really like you're trying to pull your ankles away from your hips. Good. Nice. And then release the legs back down. Good. Same thing again. Get as long as you can already where you are. Feel the front of your pelvis start to lift forward and up. So you're lifting your hip points towards the top of your mat. And then maintain that as you start to stretch your legs long and lift the legs up off of the floor. So again, really straight legs here. So don't let the knees bend because you're trying to get your legs higher. Really work from the inner thighs and the extension out through the big toe mound, baby toe edge of the legs. So you're extending, pulling long, and hip points pull forward and up. Good. Release the legs back down. Nice. One more time with just the legs. Again, set your pelvis, lifting through the front edge of your sit bones, and then extend all the way back, float the legs up off of the floor. And again, watch here that you are squeezing the block, but you're not clenching your butt. So squeeze the block. Good. And try and feel almost a hugging of just the outer edges of your hips instead of that full squeeze of your butt against your tailbone. Good. And then release the legs down to the floor. Please keep the block where it is, sorry. Place the feet flat, tops of the feet flat on the floor. Walk your hands back alongside your ribs for Cobra. Yep. Hands alongside your ribs, Cobra Pose. Legs are just normal Cobra with a block between the shins. Press into your hands, please. Begin to lift up head, neck, and chest. Rise up into Cobra. Press down through the front of the shins. Good. And then lower down about halfway. So again, the elbows are bent, but come down just a little bit. Tuck your chin towards your chest, round into your middle ribs, and feel as though, again, you are lifting your hip points forward and up. Really focus on that lift of your hip points forward and up and press your shins down. Good. And then release all the way back down to your belly. Do the same thing again. Rise up into Cobra. Go where you like to go. Feel as though you are extending the legs back behind you. Pull backwards with your legs, but pull forward with the front of your pelvic bones. Good. And then lower down about halfway. Press into your shins, round into your middle back. Drop your chin towards your chest, round into your back, and lift those hip points forward and up. Try and pull the front of your pelvis away from the floor. Good. And then go ahead and lift the chest again back up into Cobra now that you've lifted your pelvis. Good. And then release back down, being careful of cats. And then one more like that. Press down through the shins, lift up head, neck, and chest. Find your Cobra Pose. Good. And then lower down halfway or a little bit lower. Drop the chin towards your chest, round into your middle back, and feel the pelvic bones pulling forward and up as you extend backwards through your legs. Press into your feet. Good. And then lift the chest again, keeping the pelvis lifted. Good. And then lower all the way back down. Nice job. Good. Stretch your arms straight out in front of you. Float the legs up off the floor. Lift the torso up as well. So you're in like a Superman position. Reach. Good. The hero's pose, right? Good. Lift through the back of your heart. Squeeze that block, but don't clench your butt. Nice. And then release, please. Good job. Good. Walk your hands back alongside your ribs. Press up to hands and knees. Yeah, you can place your block to the side for the moment. Do a little bit of cat and cow on hands and knees. So again, just moving your spine. Good. Right, so the main position of hero's pose, right, it's a lot of quad, and like I said, a neutral pelvis. So what challenges us a lot is the attachment, right, how the legs are fitting into the pelvis. So the front of the thighs can be tight, the pelvis can be tight, hip flexors can be tight, lower back can be tight for 1,000 different reasons. And if that is the case, then we're going to have trouble sitting in that position with our spine upright and feel like we can sustain that. Good. So we're working a lot with just trying to free up space at the front of the pelvis where the thighs connect. Good. Come back to stillness, please. And then grab your blanket. And you're going to make a little bit of like a thick roll with your blanket. And you're laying down on your belly, coming into Sphinx Pose with that rolled blanket underneath the front edge of your pelvis. So right across the ridge of your pelvic bones. So you're coming down onto your belly. Good. Coming up on your forearms, And that rolled blanket should be creating pressure across the front edge of your pelvic bones. Nice. So as you press into the forearms and lift your chest all the way up, Teresa, into Sphinx Pose. Good. Is that should be, again, a pressing down into that rolled blanket. So you're pressing the pelvis forward into the resistance of the blanket. And by having that, again, we're looking to free up space between the front of your pelvic bones and the tops of your thighs. Good. So you want there to be pressure. Nice. Added benefit is that opening up this space, it's said to be very good for your digestion. It's very good for relieving other lower back types of things. Good. So press into your forearms, chest is lifted, and you're really pressing the front of your pelvic bones forward and up. So as they say, don't breathe away from the pressure, breathe into the pressure. Actually breathe into your belly and try and find contact with the blanket, pushing into it. Good. You're dragging back on your forearm, so your chest is lifting, and there's that feeling of extension through the front of the legs, all the way up through the front of the chest. So the back bend makes space for you to be able to sit in a neutral spine. Good. So Teresa, you're all the way up on your hands. If you want, you can be on your forearms in Sphinx. There you go. Just a little bit less effort to hold. Good, you guys. You're breathing into the belly, breathing into the lower back. Good. And long legs. Good. Because even though the position itself, Virasana, is a bent knee position, so there's that experience, right, of having the legs folded under. So it's not a long leg, it's a compressed leg. You want to work that long extension so that the joint itself, the knees, are well prepared for being in that position and keeping circulation going, etc. Good. One more breath. Press down into your forearms. Really lift the chest. Good. Nice, Lorraine. And then slowly release, please. Good job, Joanne, too. I'm watching both of you. Good. Press back up to hands and knees. Good. Separate the knees a little bit wider. Please take that same rolled blanket, maybe a little bit less of a large roll. So unroll it a little bit, and then bring it, as you start to sit back towards your heels in child's pose, bring it all the way up into your thigh creases again. So that as you come back into child's pose, the blanket is rolled the front of your pelvis. Front of your pelvis comes all the way into the front of the pelvis. There you go. So it's like you're leaning over the blanket as you come into child's pose. Exactly. Nice. So again, you're keeping pressure ideally in that same sort of place at the base of your belly or in the front of your pelvic bone. So it makes space in the lower back, decompresses the hips a little bit. And that's what we want, is we want there to be this freedom at the front of the pelvis so that the thighs are able to have their maximum ability to be folded under and the spine is able to be straight. Good. Again, added benefits is that this kind of positioning does tend to help with lower back stuff. Good. So again, breathe into your belly, breathe into your lower back. Again, feeling like this moment is one where you are tapping into your strength, your resilience, right? The qualities that you would consider a hero to have. Because you have them too. It's just you don't think of them as being very extraordinary. You're like, they're just my normal things, right? And those, so many of those moments where we decide not to try, we decide to give up, right? The hero's pose is for us to tap into that feeling of resilience and, in some cases, service, so that we give up less and less often in our life. And one more breath. And then walk yourself back up, please. Nice job. Place your blanket to the side. And then find your way to downward facing dog. Good. Nice, you guys. Step the right foot forward between the hands, lunge. Good. Drop the back knee. Use a blanket there if you'd like. Anjane Asana. Good. Inhale both arms to the sky. Good. And pressing through that front heel, let your pelvis go forward a lot and squeeze your front heel and your back knee towards each other. So yeah, you can absolutely use the hands at the front thigh if you'd like. Good. Nice also to keep the arms up if you can. Let the pelvis move forward. Good. Lifting your hip points. One more breath, heart to the sky. Nice. And then release the hands down to the floor. Use blocks underneath the hands if you'd like. Move your left hip back on top of your left knee. Take your right leg forward to straight. Ardha Hanuman Asana. Good. Dragging down through the heel, pressing back through your sit bones. Lean forward. Good. And pressing through your left shin. So that supporting leg, don't have it be doing nothing. Press down through your left shin. And as you lean forward, again, you're sending your sit bones back and wide. So again, you're tilting through the thigh crease. Good. Nice. One more breath, butt goes back. Good. And then drag that heel back in, please. Come back to Anjaneyasana. Asana. Bend the right knee over the right ankle. Good. Squeezing the front heel and the back knee towards each other. Beautiful. And then release the hands down to the floor. Good. Lift the back knee up, please. You can keep your hands on blocks here if having your fingertips on the floor is not fully stable, but hands touching something, either the floor or your blocks. Good. Back knee is lifted. And then you're going to bend the back knee again, almost to the floor. So drop it down almost to the floor and squeeze it forward and get into that little tuck of your tailbone. Yeah, so the knee is almost on the floor and squeeze it forward and round your low back. Good. And now extend your spine, straighten that back thigh. Good. So you're lifting the inner thigh up towards the sky, straighten the leg, lift the front of your pelvic bones. Good. And then bend the back knee again, squeeze it forward, round into your back just a little bit. Good. So again, you're decompressing, you're lifting your thighs and your hip points away from each other. Extend that left leg back to straight. Good. And then one more time, bend the back knee, squeeze it forward, round into your back. Keep that front knee over the front ankle. Good. Keep your foot awake. And then stretch that leg back to straight, please. Lift your chest. Awesome. And then go ahead and step back to downward facing dog. Nice, you guys. Slide forward to plank pose, upward push up. Good. Look towards your belly button, around your back in plank. Good. And again, try and lift here. Lift your hip points up away from your thighs. So you're pressing back through your heels, inner thighs are lifting, but try and lift your hip points towards your rib cage or towards your belly button. Good. And then maintain that, please. Bring your chest forward, sternum forward, lift through the back of your throat again. Keep those hip points lifting forward and up. Beautiful. Then lower all the way down to your belly without letting the pelvis collapse. Keep those hip points forward and up. Good. Rise up into Cobra, point the toes back behind you, remembering that feeling of hugging your shins together. Lift up head, neck, and chest. Lift the front of your pelvic bones off of the floor. Lift them forward and up. Tilt them forward and up. Good. And then relax, please, back to downward facing dog. Now, strange thing to say, relax into downward facing dog. Good. Left foot steps forward between the hands, lunge. Good. Drop the back knee. Use a blanket if you'd like. Anjaneyasana. Inhale the arms up to the sky. Good. And then again, you're letting your pelvis move forward a lot. So you're squeezing the back knee and the front heel towards each other. So the thighs are engaged, inner thighs are engaged, but you're letting the pelvis move forward, forward, forward. You're letting gravity really take you there and press through that left heel. So again, you're not letting the ankle just take all of the stress as you're really pressing down through the heel. That's going to get the back of the thigh, the hamstring to fire up. Good. Pelvis goes forward, forward, forward. Heart goes up, up, up. Nice. Good. Joanne, just watch that you don't push more through your right side of your pelvis as your left. Make sure that they're equal to each other. Awesome, you guys. Release the hands down to the floor. Move your right hip back on top of your right knee. Take your left leg forward to straight. Come up on the heel. Good. And then walking the hands forward towards the ankle. Yeah, forward fold over the left leg. Send your thigh creases going backwards, sit bones going back and wide, and press into your right shin. Good. So again, Virasana is a very simple, or it seems as a deceptively simple position. We use it again as rest, or we use it just to sit. But there are variations, of course. So this pose is one of the preparations for hamstring stretch that we often do, Ardha Virasana, half of the hero's pose. Good. So there's a lot of places that you can go once you have the concept of hero's pose really specifically mastered, right? Your pelvic understanding is really mastered, and there's a neutrality there. There's a lot you can do. Good. Drag that left heel back in space. Bring your left knee forward over the ankle. Come back to Anjane Asana. Good. Inhale the arms back up to the sky. Again, letting the pelvis move forward as you press through that left heel. So really press down so you get the back of the leg awake, muscularly awake. And then squeeze the back knee and the front heel towards each other. You should feel like your spine automatically gets longer from that squeeze. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor or blocks. Good. Tuck your back toes, lift your back knee. Keep the hands either on the floor or blocks framing the front foot. Good. Nice. So again, make sure your hands are touching something, long spine so the chest is lifted, and then bend the back knee, dropping it almost down to the floor, and pull that thigh forward in space and round your back. Good. So as you round your back, it's going to feel like your butt is moving back towards your heel as your thigh pulls forward. Good. And then start to straighten the leg again, lengthening through your spine, through the back of the pelvis. Good. Bend the knee again as it drops in almost to the floor. Pull the thigh forward so it should feel like your hips move back in space. Good. And you're rounding into your low back. Nice. And then start to straighten the leg again. Good. Extending out through the side ribs, through the sternum. One more time, bend the knee, drop it almost down to the floor. Squeeze it forward, round into your back. Good. Nice, Teresa. Nice, Jen. And then straighten the thigh back behind you. Lengthen, lengthen, lengthen from your armpits to your hips. Good. And then go ahead and step back to downward facing dog. Good. Slide forward to plank pose, upward push up. Again, looking towards your belly button, rounding into your back rib cage. Feel that lift at the front of your thighs. So you're pulling your pelvic bones forward and up. Good. And then you keep that. So it's going to feel almost again like you're rounding into your lower back a little bit, and then push your inner thighs up towards the sky. So it's going to feel like resistance. So the front of your pelvic bones go forward and up, but your inner thighs press up and back. Good. Nice, you guys. And then drop the right knee down to the floor underneath your right hip. Left leg stays extended. Good. Toes tucked. Press down into the ball of that left foot and pull forward. So again, almost like you're rounding into your lower back again. So you're pulling that left thigh into the hip socket. Your right knee is right underneath your right hip, so it's supporting you. Good. And now take that left leg up off of the floor in line with your hip. Good. So Joanne, it looks like your right knee has to come slightly forward, or you got to walk your hands back. There you go. Good. So left leg is lifted in line with your hip. Take the right arm forward. Take a full balance. Good. And then take the right hand back behind your head. Bend your left knee. Kick your heel in towards your butt. Good. And press up through that heel. So again, the stretching of the thigh. Good. Hip points continue to lift forward and up. So try and maintain that neutral length in your pelvis. Awesome. And then reach back for the ankle if you'd like, or stay where you are. Soon as you reach back for that ankle and you're kicking the foot back into your hand, dig your left knee down towards the floor. As you dig that knee down, again, feel that lift at your low back, the rounding of your low back and the lifting of your hip points. Good. And then maintain that and relift that left thigh again. You're like, well, that's impossible. Good. And then slowly release, extend all the way back out. Nice. And then release the left knee down to the floor. Good. Circle your hips just a little bit because that was a lot of holding. Nice. Now, quad stretching is very deceptive. In some positions, we feel very comfortable in it, or we are at least accepting of it. But actually getting into the full length of your quad is very, I don't know, I find it aggravating, right? Because it's not just how much you pull on the knee or how much you pull on the thigh back behind you. It's this ability to lift the pelvis up off of the thigh. Come back to center, please. Good. So take the right leg back behind you, toes tucked on the floor. Good. And as you press down into that foot, I want you to drag that right thigh bone up and into the pelvis. Good. So press down, but drag the leg up and in. Good. So already, again, you're trying to get those hip points to lift up off of your thighs. Good. And then maintain that and lift the right leg up parallel to the floor. So as that leg lifts up, try not to drop the pelvis into that arched position, but keep the hip points lifted. Good. And then take your left arm, walk it forward, stretch it up in line with your shoulder. Good. And then left hand comes back behind your head. So you have this reminder to keep lifting the back of your throat. And then bend your right knee, kick your heel in towards your butt. Good. And press that heel up towards the ceiling. So pull your thigh up away from the floor as much as you can. Again, using the power of the thigh itself. Good. And then reach back for the foot or the ankle if you'd like, or stay where you are. Good. Especially if you are holding the foot. Once you have that connection, dig your right knee down towards the floor, round up into your low back again. So as that thigh digs down, the hip points lift up off of the thigh, finding almost a neutral angle for the pelvis. And then lift your shoulders higher, lift your chest higher, and then start to re-lift that thigh, but don't let your pelvis dip into that back bend again. Keep the hip points lifted up. Good. And then extend all the way back out. Nice job. And then release back to hands and knees. Good. Circle your hips the other direction from what you did before. Nice, you guys. Sitting in Virasana requires us to be in a lot of neutral alignment, neutral pelvis. Even the legs they're slightly internally rotated in the seated position. But the angle of the knees with the hip is neutral. They're not wider than the hips. Feet are wider than the hips. Good. Come back to stillness, please. Nice. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, downward facing dog. And start to walk your feet forward towards your hands. Yep. Standing forward fold. Good. Fingertips touching something, floor or blocks. Bend your knees deeply like you're in chair pose. So your hips move back in space. Good. You're hugging your shins towards each other, widening your inner thighs. Good. And then in this position, I want you to contract your quadriceps. So contract the top of your thigh, like you're trying to actually squeeze your thigh muscles. You're trying to actually squeeze your kneecap. They say lift it up towards your hips. So squeeze and then release. And squeeze your quads and release. And squeeze again. Tops of thighs. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Good. And then release. Good. Scoop your belly, please. Press your butt up towards the sky. Straighten the legs. Good. And now with a straight leg, contract your quads again. So pull the kneecaps up towards the top of your hips. Pull the thigh bones up into your hip socket and release. And then squeeze again. Try and make that defined muscle of your thighs. Try and make that happen. Good. And then release it. And one more time, squeeze the quad muscle, lifting through your seat. Lift your sit bones up, up, up. Good. And then relax that squeeze of the thighs. Nice job. Bend your knees again. Drop your seat back to chair. And then take your arms up all the way alongside your ears, full chair pose. Good. Again, letting your weight settle into your heels, squeezing the shins. Beautiful. Again, you can contract the quads here, but then lift your hip points up off of your thighs. You can take your hands to your thighs. Do that. Hands to the tops of your thighs. And then round into your lower back here. Really lift your hip points up off of your thighs. Good. Nice, nice, nice. Beautiful. And then come all the way up to stand, please. Stretching the arms up alongside your ears. And can you find here, standing up, where you are lifting your hip points up off of your thighs? So tops of the thighs are floating back in space, but your bony part of the pelvis, the front of the hip bones, is lifting up off of your thighs. So try and feel that. You can even take your hands to the front of your thighs if you can't quite feel it. But I find that if you have your arms up in the sky, right, imagining that you just got out of bed and you're doing a full body stretch, right? Try that. Do a full body stretch where you're really lifting through the front of your thighs, all the way through the front of your pelvis, all the way through the front of your ribs. Pull up, pull up, pull up. Because you don't want to lose any of this length in a position like Virasana. This is what it should feel like with your spine. You just happen to have your legs folded under you, right? So the hip points are lifting, lifting, lifting. Good. And then release the hands back down to the floor, please. Forward fold. Nice. Bend your knees again. Dropping your seat towards chair. Scoop your low belly. Lift your hip points up off of your thighs. And then take your torso forward just to parallel to the floor. So you're reaching straight forward with the ribs, arms alongside your ears or hands behind your head, whichever works better. Good. But you're pressing back through the tops of your thigh creases, dropping your seat, chest parallel to the floor. Nice. So again, we got to get the quads really awake so that they can more functionally be able to stretch. Awesome. Come all the way back up to stand, dropping your hips lower as you bring your chest higher. Good. Arms up to the sky. Again, take that full body stretch, pulling up as much as you can. Press down through your heels. Good. Lifting those hip points, lifting the thighs as long as they will go. Nice. And then release the hands, please. Good. So the right leg is your standing leg. You're going to bend your left knee and reach with your left hand back for the foot or the ankle. So dancer pose preparation. Good. You can have the right hand at your right hip here because you're just kind of staying here in the preparation. So I want you to really focus on the lift of your hip points here. So you're lifting your hip points up and you're letting the left knee really just descend. Let it fall towards the floor. So it's the lengthening of your thigh that matters. You're lifting your hip points up and you're dropping through that left thigh. Good. So that's all you're doing. You're bringing the heel as close in towards your butt as it will go, but you're lifting your hip points up. That's where a lot of the stretch is happening, right? The hip points are lifting up and then you're letting the knee drop down. So it's not so much a pulling backwards yet. It's just dropping down. Pelvic bones up, up, up. Good. And then keep the heel close to your butt here. Right hand can stay at your hip or come alongside the ear. Start to lean forward towards dancer pose. Keep the heel at your butt. So as you start to lean forward, you're not kicking the foot strong back into the hand, is you're trying to keep this feeling of heel in towards my butt. As my chest comes forward, my pelvis is tilting. Yeah, my knee points down and I'm keeping my heel towards my butt. Good, and my thigh can only reach as far as it will go, keeping my heel towards my butt. Thigh bone in the hip socket, hip point lifted. Good, try and keep that knee pointing down, Joanne. Nice, same thing, Teresa, knee points down. Oh no, that's your other foot. Perfect, no, you're good. Good, come all the way back up. Really good balancing, you guys. And then release that foot down to the floor. Awesome. Separate your feet nice and wide on your mat. Good, do a little hula hooping if you want with your hips. As I said, thigh stretching, you know, when we don't just do the automatic quad stretch in a lunge or something like that, is really kind of a pain in the butt. Come back to neutral, please. Feet facing straight ahead, bend your knees, take your butt back, take your torso forward parallel to the floor. Downhill skier. So your knees are over the ankles, butt is back, feet are wide. So Joanne, Lorraine, bring your feet wider. Jen, bring your feet wider. As wide as your mat. Wider, wider, wider. There you go. Good. So you have this feeling of hugging the knees towards each other, but pressing the inner thighs wide. Good. Again, because in Virasana, the feet are wider than the hips, but the knees are in line with the hip points. Good. One more breath, dropping your seat, extending out through your chest. Good. And then come all the way back up to stand, please. Beautiful. Turn your feet out, both feet 45 degrees. Good. Bend your knees into a high squat. You might even have to take your feet slightly wider in order for that to work, but bend your knees into a high squat. Good. So Teresa, take your feet a little wider. Joanne, take your feet a little wider. Good. You're not holding for a long time, so just hang out there for a moment. Stretch the arms up to the sky. Again, this sensation of contracting your quad muscles. So squeeze your thigh bones up into the pelvis. Squeeze the muscle of the leg. Try and find that defined muscle. Good. And then come all the way up to stand, still squeezing the muscle as you come up to stand. Really pull your hip points up, 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 up. Nice. And then release that action, release the effort, heel toe your feet back underneath your hips. And you're coming into the dancer pose preparation on the second side. So your left leg holds you, right knee is gonna bend. You're reaching back with the right hand for the foot or the ankle, left hand stays at your left hip. Good. Of course, if you're using a chair or something else to balance with, no problem, because again, I'm asking you to stay here for a little while. But I want you to focus with letting that knee come in line with the standing knee. So it might even come slightly forward. Good. And then you're lifting the hip point up. So you're starting with trying to find a completely neutral pelvis, straight up and down, not already tilted, because most of us already start with the pelvis slightly tilted forward. So you're trying to find that neutral position. So the knees are in line with each other. Hip point is lifting up off of your thigh and the thigh bone is dropping. The knee is dropping straight down towards the floor. So you're lifting the hip point up and you're trying to drop that knee down without letting the hip sink. Good. And you're keeping that heel as close in towards your butt as it will reasonably go. Nice. Lifting the hip point, dropping through the length of your thigh, knees in line with each other. Good. Keep the heel close to your butt here. If you want, left hand can stay where it is or it can come up alongside the ear. Start to lean forward towards dancer pose, keeping the heel close to your butt cheek. So as you come forward, chest comes forward, pelvis tilts, and the thigh can lift up back behind you, but you're not relying on that kickback through the foot. You're relying on the actual lift of your thigh and the lift of your pelvis. So the pelvic bones continue to lift forward and up as the thigh goes back, heel in towards your butt. Good. I know I say it over and over again that this way of practicing is very aggravating. Nice. One more breath. Lean forward more. Kick that thigh back. Yes. Nice, Teresa. And then come all the way back up, please. Beautiful. And then release that foot down to the floor. Nice job. Again, hula hoop the hips a little bit, maybe taking the feet a little wider. Beautiful. Okay. And then inhale the arms up to the sky, feet underneath the hips. Good. Exhale, bow forward. Good. Step yourself back to plank pose, upward push up. And again, focusing on lifting the thighs forward and up. So round your back, bring your gaze towards your belly button, round into your middle rib cage. Pull the tops of your thighs, your hip points forward and up. Good. And then press back through the inner thighs. The inner thighs pull up towards the ceiling, but your hip points pull forward towards the top of your mat. Nice. And then lift your chest forward again. So you're in that full plank position. Press out through your heels. Inner thighs up towards the ceiling, but hip points forward and up. Nice. And then come back downward facing dog. Tops of the thighs lift up and press back. Awesome. Nice, you guys. Bring the right leg up and back, down dog split. Bring that knee forward and wide for pigeon pose. So right knee goes towards your right wrist. Good. Sliding the left leg back and again, staying upright here. So you can bring blocks underneath your hands if you'd like. Because again, the focus here is not so much on the hip. The focus here is on the quad. So it's more the back leg that I'm focusing on. Good. So make sure that you are setting your pelvis square towards the top of your mat. Right thigh crease pulls back. Left hip spins forward. Good. Hands can be on blocks. Press into that front shin. Tuck your back toes, please. And if you can, lift your back knee up off of the floor. Good. So as that thigh maybe comes up off of the floor, you're continuing to try and lift your hip points forward and up. Good. And then drop the knee back down to the floor, please. Use a blanket there if you'd like. If it's available, bend the knee, kick your heel in towards your butt. Reach back, left hand for the foot or the ankle. Good. So take the more traditional quad stretch. Good. But don't lose sight of your hip points lifting forward and up. Good. You're actually kind of great there, Kristen, not reaching for the foot because you're just using the actual strength of your quads. So that's fine. Good. So dig that knee down and forward. Scoop into your low belly like you're going to bring your butt back to your heel. That's it. Nice, nice, nice. And then slowly release it. Let the foot come back down to the floor. Awesome. Lift the back knee, come back downward facing dog. Good. Pedal the feet, please. And then come into pigeon on the other side. Left leg comes up and back behind you. Bring that knee forward and wide. Good. Bringing the back knee down to the floor, having blocks or something underneath your hand so that you can stay more upright in your position. Good, and you're still sending that outer right hip spinning forward, left thigh crease pulling back and wide. Good. And then tuck the back toes, and if you can, start to lift the back knee up off of the floor. And as that back knee lifts up off of the floor, you're still trying to tilt your pelvic bones forward and up. So it's like you're still trying to angle your tail down towards the floor and lift the front of your pelvis into a vertical neutral position, right? I know it's almost impossible to do in pigeon, but that's what you're looking for. Good, so that you really get into the attachment of the front of the thigh and how it gets really stuck into the front of the pelvis. Good. So is this only quads working? No, but it gets into our quads, our hip flexors, lots of things. Good. Drop the knee back down to the floor, please. And again, if it's available, go ahead and bend the knee, kick your heel in towards your butt, reach back, right hand for the foot or the ankle. Good. You could reach back for the left hand if you had to, but same hand, same foot is nice so that you're not getting distracted by the twisting. Because again, Virasana is about staying very neutral with your angles. Good. So here you can press the foot back into the hand if you'd like. So you have that little push back, and then try and lift your butt up and back towards your heel. So you're actually scooping into the low belly, lifting the hip points, and try and bring your butt back to meet your heel. Nice. Good, you guys. And then slowly release. Awesome. Plant the hands, lift back to downward facing dog. Yeah, so you're paying attention here that if the knees at any point are not enjoying this sensation of quad stretching, this is why we're focusing a lot at the pelvis, because if the pelvis has a lot of space for the thighs to belong, essentially, is that that's not going to pull on the knees as much as it will when we don't have that space in the pelvis. Good. Jump your feet forward to squat, please. Good, bending the knees, dropping the hips. Beautiful. And in your squat pose, squeeze your knees inward. And even here, can you find a little contraction of your quads? Can you squeeze your thigh muscles? And then release. And squeeze your thigh muscles. You're gonna feel probably your butt squeeze too, that's fine. And then release. And one more, try and squeeze into your thigh muscles. And release. Good job. Come on down to sit. Stretch your legs straight out in front of you. Yay. Good. Inhale the arms up to the sky. Take a forward fold to press down through the tops of the thighs and bow forward. Paschimottanasana. Again, it seems so funny to say I'm doing all of this work, all of this, maybe very difficult work to get comfortable to be able to just sit. But that's sort of the essence of asana, right? That's what we're asked to do, is you do all of this physical stuff with your body so that you're able to just sit. Meditation, realization. So the hero's pose, right, is to connect to the heroic qualities in you of resilience, strength, steadfastness, service. Because they exist in you already, but when we don't use them, it seems like they're not at our disposal, or they're nothing big, they're nothing exciting, they're nothing that we should reach for. So the hero's pose is starting to consider what you have that seems very mundane as being very important. That's what allows you to rise to challenges. Walk yourself back in, please. Good, bend your knees, plant your feet. Same width as your hips. Take your hands back behind you, fingers pointing towards your heels. Good, get a little bend to the elbows. Again, hands can be a little wider here if they need to be for supporting the shoulders. Hands can even turn out slightly if necessary. Little bend to the elbows, squeeze the upper arms, and then press into your feet and lift up to reverse table. Get another way to begin to get into this feeling of stretching the quads and into the pelvis. So make sure your weight is coming forward onto your heels and onto the balls of your feet. Good, you're squeezing the arms, and from the back of the heart you lift, and then pull your hip points up towards your ribs. That's it. And hug your inner knees just a little bit. Again, like there's a block between your shins. And roll your weight towards the balls of your feet. That's it. And then again, lift your hip points up. Good. Really nice. Good, Joanne. Nice, Teresa. Good, Jen. Press into those feet. Shouldn't be able to lift your toes like that. Good. And then release the butt back down to the floor. Nice job. Not that you shouldn't be able to do it, but you know, if your weight is evenly distributed on your feet, you can't do it. Bottoms of the feet together, let your knees go wide, Baddha Konasana. Good. And then fold forward, please, any way you'd like. Again, internal rotation sounds like it should be the easier rotation to do, but it's often the one that's more aggravating because it challenges where we are tight at a more fundamental level than external rotation does. Good. Walk yourself back up, please. Good. Straighten your right leg out in front of you. Bring your left foot over your right thigh. So right leg extends out in front of you. Bring your left foot over your right thigh and then bend, if you can, the right knee as well. So your right heel comes towards your left butt cheek. Yep. There you go. So it's coming into half Lord of the Fishes. It's a twist. So if bending both knees does not work for you, keep that left leg straight or keep your right leg straight. Sorry. Yeah. So Jen, just make sure that your left foot is actually on the floor on the outside of your thigh instead of stacked on top. And then you're wrapping your right arm around your left knee. Left hand comes back behind you. Spinal twist. Good. Nice. So Lorraine, if you can, drop your, which leg is that? Your right knee towards the floor. If you look at the way Joanne is doing it, drop that knee towards the floor and bring your heel towards your butt. There you go. Yeah, totally different stretch for your hip. And you're like, oh, I don't like that. There you go. Good. And then slowly come on out. Try the other side, please. Good. So left leg starts extended. Take your right foot to the outside of your left thigh. And then again, this might be enough. If this is enough of a, hip experience, then you stay here. If you can, bend your left knee as well and take that heel towards your right butt cheek. So your left knee is going to be towards your right ankle and butt cheek or heel towards the butt. There you go. And then left arm around the knee, right hand back behind you. Good. Trying to keep both sit bones down to the floor. Good. Yeah, and take any effort that you put into your practice as something heroic. Nice. Because again, if we can't see ourselves in a positive light, if we're not connecting to the qualities that we have as something that is special and that we can rely on and tap into, then we won't feel like we are enough, that we have the ability to meet the challenges of our life. We'll run away. So you think you're very simple and ordinary and boring and maybe nothing to talk about. But you have all of the qualities of what you would consider a hero to be. You just maybe don't rely on them habitually. So hero's pose is cultivate that inner steadfastness and the willingness to not run away. Rely on yourself. Come on back to center, please. Unwind the legs. Good. Roll yourself up or come up onto hands and knees. Come to a kneeling position. So you can start from hands and knees and then bring your hands to your hips. Come all the way up. Good. And then hands at the lower back, please. So like a preparation for camel, but you're not really reaching for a full camel. Again, the whole point is just to get into the stretch of the thighs. So with your hands at your low back, press your sacrum back into your hands. So again, we're looking for a neutral angle of the pelvis. So it's not already arched and it's not in a rounded position either, but press back. So the tops of your thighs, your thigh creases get a little softer, and then get as tall as you can. Pull up through your armpits, like that full body stretch again. Pull up, pull up, pull up, and press into your shins. Good. Now maintain that pressure of your sacrum against your hands and start to lean back, hinge back. So you're not looking for the back bend, but you're just hinging. You're bringing your thighs back at that angle, almost like you're doing a upright quad stretch. Good. Pressure of the low back into your hands so that you keep yourself from going into that arched position. Good. One more breath. And then pull yourself all the way back up. Good. Do that hinge again, please. So pressure against the hands, start to lean back. Good. Keeping the ribs drawn in, hip points lifted up off of your thighs. Don't collapse into your hands, the heaviness of the legs. Get longer through your spine. Good. And then all the way back up to upright, please. Good. One more time. Take a breath. Pressure of the sacrum into your hands. Lean back. Hinge. Good. Keep the thighs nice and long. Hip points lifted up off of your thighs. Belly in. And all the way back up to center. And guess what? Bring a block between your feet. Good. Tops of the feet stay exactly where they are, a little bit wider than your hips. And go ahead and drop your hips back onto, or drop your sit bones back onto the block of Virasana. Knees point straight ahead. Good. The heels should be a little wider than your sit bones. So try to wiggle your heels a little wider, but make sure your knees are pointing straight ahead. Good. And then can you lean forward just a little bit? And as you lean forward, you're sending your groins back and in, sending your sit bones wide. Again, getting softer in your thigh creases. And drop down through your sit bones. Good. And then bring your shoulders back on top of your hips. Inhale the arms up to the sky. Pull up through your side ribs. Press down through your seat, but pull up through your side ribs. Good. Press down through your seat. Lift through your side ribs. Beautiful. And then release the hands down to the floor. Walk your hands back slightly behind you. Keep your shins anchored down to the floor. Walk your hands back a little bit more. Lean back onto your hands. Again, feeling your hip points lifting up off of your thighs. Walk back onto your hands. Lean onto your hands. Good. Long, long legs. Press down through your shins. So here again, heels close to your butt. Press down into your shins, almost like you were kicking your foot back into your hands. Nice. Come down to your forearms if you can. Keep walking back. Good. Keep your shins anchored to the floor. Again, butt reaching for your heels. Beautiful. Just breathe into that space where the thigh crease exists, where the legs meet the pelvis. Awesome. And then slowly walk yourself back up. Nice job. Lift your butt up off of the block. Good. And a half Virasana variation. So you're going to step so stay up in that high kneeling position for a moment. You're going to step your right foot in front of you. Right foot steps forward in front of you. And then the left leg is going to stay folded in Virasana. So this is the half Virasana variation. You might still want that block underneath your seat. So you're going to bring your butt back to the floor inside your left heel, but with the right leg extended straight in front of you. So again, you might want the block underneath your sit bones. You might not need it in this position. Good. Be honest with yourself if your knees say, yes, I do. Awesome. Good. So the left leg is folded under you. Again, that knee is still in line with your hip and your heel is coming slightly to the outside if you can, but the top of the foot should be pretty well flat to the floor, right? So again, creating neutral angles. Good. Right leg is extended. Inhale the arms up to the sky. Again, pull through your side waist. Lean slightly forward as you press back through. Good. And then the option here, so this becomes a little bit, is to try and bend. You're still with that left leg folded under, bend your right knee, plant your right foot flat to the floor. Good. Knee in towards your chest, foot flat to the floor. So this is considered another variation of Virasana. This position just by itself, hands at heart center is usually how we do it. So you can come into a little prayer twist here if you'd like, bringing your left elbow to the outside of that right knee, or even hugging the knee in again if hooking the elbow doesn't work. Good. You often see Hanuman sitting in this pose. not in the prayer twist, but in the hero's position. Good. Beautiful. And then come on back to center, please. Third bizarre variation you could do here is, if you want to and can, balancing back on your sit bones. You got to lean back slightly, lift that right foot up off the floor, reaching for the foot or behind the thigh, extend your right leg straight out in front of you. Again, you could use a strap for this too. So it's a slight lean back so that you can get your leg up, but then get as upright as you can. So don't continue to lean back. There you go. Chest up. Awesome. I told you there's a lot of things you can do once you master this sort of neutral pelvis in Virasana. Deceptively simple. Nice, Joanne. Good. And then slowly release, bend the knee back in towards your chest, place the foot down to the floor. Awesome. And then slowly release, come all the way up out of the pose. Maybe take a downward facing dog. Good. Pedal the feet. And then drop the knees back to the floor, please. We'll try the other side. Step your left foot forward in front of you. Right leg is going to stay folded under you in Virasana. Again, if you need a prop underneath your seat, put it there. Go ahead and sit back so your sit bone is inside that left heel. Left leg is extended out in front of you. Sorry, your sit bone is inside your right heel. Left leg is extended. Good. And then inhale the arms up to the sky once you've settled yourself. And then bow over the left leg. Good. And as you lean forward, again, it's a softening of the thigh creases, especially in this position, because that extended knee, if you're up on a block, might have some negative space underneath it. Press down into the heel so you stay supported underneath the knee. You're actually dragging backwards. Good. You might even contract your quad muscle again to protect the knee. Good. All of this effort so that you can sit in yourself every day and acknowledge that what is there is real important experience. You don't disregard yourself. And you trust that there's nothing in your life that you need to run away from. Walk yourself back up, please. Good. Bend the left knee. Please place the foot flat to the floor. Again, you can go for the twist here if you would like. Either hands at heart center to go into the prayer twist, right elbow to the outside of the left knee, or you can use the right arm hugged around the knee. Good. Don't let the knee splay open, so keep it in line with your hip. You're turning your ribs. Nice, Lorraine. Good, Jen. Good, and then slowly release, coming back to center. Third variation, if you'd like, you got to lean back slightly, lift that left foot up off the floor. Either hold the foot, use a strap around the foot, or hold behind the thigh and extend that left leg straight out in front of you. Take it as high as it will go. Nice and high. Yeah. And then once you've got it lifted, try and tilt forward back to the front edge of your pelvis. So don't keep leaning back. Nice. Fancy Virasana. Yeah. Make a lot of weird faces and sounds. Good job. And then slowly release. Nice, Joanne. Bend the knee back in. Place the foot down. Slowly come on up out of your pose. Again, it's a lot of work for the quads. A lot of stretch for the quads. Good. Come forward again. Maybe take a downward facing dog so you release the compression on the knees. Beautiful. And then drop down to your knees, please, and find your way as gracefully as you can onto your back. Good. And so you're settling yourself basically into your position for Shavasana. So do it however you would like to do it, however you want to be facing. That's why I didn't do a lot of choreography there, because I want you to be facing the direction you want to be facing. So as you come on down to your back, stretch your legs out in front of you. Arms up overhead. Give yourself that full body stretch again, feeling the lift of the top of the thighs and the drawing down of the lower rib cage. Good. Maybe wiggle from side to side, turning the shoulders and the hips. Good. And then as you come back to center, releasing the arms out wide, letting the feet separate nice and wide, letting your feet drop open. So here there's that nice ability that in Virasana, everything is very contained and straightforward. It's neutral. So in Shavasana, take up a lot of space. Go beyond the edge of your shoulders and your hips. Go wide. Very gently bring the awareness back to your breath. Let your body begin to stretch and move, whatever ways serve it well. And as you're ready, draw the knees in towards your chest and roll to your right side. And take a moment before you begin to push the floor away, come back to an upright seated position. Maybe even back to Virasana. Hands coming to the heart center, palm to palm. So it's the hero's pose, not because it itself is complicated or challenging or something that no one else can do. You have to be special to do it. It's the hero's pose because in it you are able to cultivate this sense of steadiness and humbleness, the qualities that you already possess that you think are no big deal. But it's what you rely on day after day to meet the challenges of your life and not run away. So the more we really believe in what's in us, we believe that we are something worthy and special and strong and resilient and all of those things that you actually are, as you meet your life more completely. The pose itself is simple. It's a pose of just being steadfast and being able to sit in yourself, sit with yourself, not run away. So we use it for meditation, but we also use the attitude of it to be clear about how important every moment of our life is, how important the way that you perceive yourself is. If you think you are nothing, you will feel like you have nothing. If you know you are everything, you will always feel that you have enough. So don't run away from yourself. It's the hero's pose. You become the hero inside. Close the sound of Om, deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your night, a great rest of your week until I see you again. Don't forget, Sarah and I were teaching our workshop on unlocking the pelvis this weekend. So if you're afraid that it's going to be me just beating up your hips the whole time, it's not. So that's not the purpose of it. So if you have any interest in that or questions, let us know. But that's on Sunday. And we will.
12 o'clock?
Stephanie was low-key annoying. Thank you. She's like,
You're welcome. And Kristen, hopefully that worked. You froze only once. We almost made it. And then the siren too. So we'll see if that messed anything up.
What time is it on Sunday?
On Sunday, 12 to 2:30.
Okay, thanks.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
In Sanskrit, is it Vir is hero or Vira is hero?
Vera.
Vira. Okay. And Virya is heroic?